Welcome back to another episode of Rocky Unscripted, where we talk about faith when Sunday is over. We're so grateful that you're joining us again. This is episode 6. Actually, I don't know which number it is because we had the intro, but we are talking about Enneagram 6s. Thank you guys for being here, Kelly and Tonya, Enneagram 6s. Thanks for being on the show.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, I don't know if you were willing to necessarily. You might have felt obligated, like I think we have to if we're asked. Is that true?
No.
No, you want to be here?
Yeah.
Okay.
We both want to know a lot about what's going on
Yes.
in our brains.
Yes. Yeah. I've been looking forward to this one for a while. You know, Mitch, you were giving me a hard...
Finally gets to talk about himself.
Exactly. Well, no, I can talk about myself every episode.
Oh, yeah.
It's just today there's a reason for it.
Yeah.
That's not completely selfish. I'm just trying to help people, you know? That's really what I want to be about. Mitch, welcome back to the show, our Enneagram guru.
Thank you, Nick.
Yeah. Now, you've been on vacation. Did you study the Enneagram more while you were away? Like, you more of an expert now?
Nope.
Oh, gosh. I was hoping so, because buckle up, buddy. There's a lot going on in the Enneagram 6 mind.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
You know
Well,
that.
yeah, dude, let's
You
do
know
this.
that.
I'm ready for that. I was ready. I needed
Okay.
a vacation from you guys. Is what I needed, actually. So.
I hear you. I can believe that. Okay, so Kelly and Tonya, I don't know which one wants to start, but I would love to know. You immediately pointed at Kelly.
I was
Okay,
so going to point to Tonya.
Kelly. Too late. So we are talking about Enneagram subtypes. And before we get there, I would just like to know from you, like, what does life look like? What is work, family, all that kind of stuff? Help us get to know you a little bit better.
Yeah, so I work here at Rocky as the NIWAC Kids Director. I have 2 very rambunctious little girls. I've got a 5-year-old and a 7-year-old who think this is home. So we're kind of always super busy and doing all the things. And yeah, that's life right now.
Mm-hmm. And how did you first hear about the Enneagram?
From Tonya.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yep. I think we actually went camping and Tonya started to tell us about it, and she was like, okay, so you guys all need to take this test. And we did one of those free tests sitting around a little campsite under a tent.
So on your phones?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what did it say when you took it?
I was actually a 1 at first.
Uh-huh.
I still kind of test as a 1 every once in a while, which, you know, Mitch and I have had these conversations.
A few times.
Yeah.
It's been fun.
Yep. But yeah, so started out as a 1 and then took it, you know, I'm a 6, so I'm also researching 6. So I've taken it multiple times.
Okay.
And eventually got to figure out that I'm really a 6 with Mitch's help. So.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And how was it like realizing you were a 6?
It was, you know, kind of like, lights all went off and everything clicked. And it actually took me a bit because I think I had conversations with Mitch too, where I was like, I don't think this is right. I think this is wrong. Pretty sure I'm a 1 because I have perfectionist things. And continuing to go through it, it made sense that I was a 6, but there were some wing things, some 5 wing things that really made it true. So,
Well, I'm glad you said that because I think it is important for people to hear and just because as they're trying to figure out themselves, a lot of times people will, you talk about like the meme version of the types. If someone's like, well, I can be organized and I can try to be detailed, it's like, I must be a 1.
Yeah.
It'd be easy to type yourself. You have to dig further.
Yeah. And it took a while because I really did wrestle with, I'm a perfectionist in a lot of things. So I'm like, I have to be a 1.
Yeah.
This just has to be it. But I think it all boiled down to like safety and security that really pointed me to be a 6. So yeah.
Right on.
Enneagram 6s and 9s, but 6s even more than 9s, have the hardest time identifying them because each of the different subtypes can really look like other numbers. And so there is a particular subtype that does look like an Enneagram 1. So we'll talk about that in a little bit.
Ooh, some foreshadowing. Tonya, let's hear about you.
Yeah, so I've been on staff at Rocky for almost 4 years. 3 of that was kids ministry at the NIWAC campus, and now I'm the groups director at the Fred campus.
Right on. What is, did you already talk about your kids? Did I miss that? Okay.
Nope. So I am married, been married for 16 years.
Wow,
and
congrats.
I have 3 boys. So a 15-year-old, a 12-year-old, and a 8-year-old.
Okay. So I imagine that this is going to come out as you guys talk. you are related.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. So you have a lot of history with each other.
Yes.
Yep.
The fact that you've been married. Wait, so when did you guys meet?
Well, how long have you been married?
13 years, 14 years.
13 or 14 years.
So it's
No, it's good.
sad
That's
because
good.
Like that.
Aaron's way better at this than I am, so he'd be able to tell you right away. Aaron's my husband.
Yeah. So, I mean, she came in the
Long time.
family
Yeah.
when, I mean, my oldest was 1. Like, he
Yeah,
was in their
he was-
wedding.
Okay.
So,
I just
Very new
imagine
baby.
in the conversation, it's going to come out that you just known each other for a
Yes.
long time.
Yeah. Super
And
long
we
time.
needed to get that out of the way,
Yes.
right? That you
Yeah.
guys
Yes.
are related.
so she married my brother.
Yeah.
So she is my
Yes.
sister-in-law.
Yeah.
Yes.
And maybe that we're good friends too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because I don't think that a lot of people have like in-laws that they're
That's
really
really,
friends
that's
with,
true.
so.
That's
cool.
true.
yeah.
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 Okay. So what was your journey so you brought the Enneagram to Kelly, but how did you discover it?
Yeah. So, I've known it for a while. I was actually trying to think of how long I've known about it, and it's been a while, and I've always tested as a 1. So,
Interesting. It's two for two.
Yeah. 6 has never been one of my numbers. And I think it's kind of a long, funny story, so I'm going to make it really short. But actually, when we did a Enneagram like leadership group here at NIWAT, I came in thinking I was a 1 the whole time. And then Mitch actually pulled me aside and was like, hey, like, based on some of the things we were talking about, because there was a 6 in our group, and I was like, hey, I should do some of those practices and all this stuff. And he's like, yeah, like, I actually think you're a 6. And he turned my whole world upside down because I had been spent years thinking I was a 1.
Yeah.
And then I spent an entire weekend researching it.
Gotcha.
And then once I figured out, like, I do have some of those 1 things, it's just the motivation's different, or it's like I'm doing it for different reasons. And so that was very wild to just all of a sudden be like this different number. But then once I learned like what a 6 is and who they are, and it made so much more sense.
Gotcha.
And the funniest thing is when Mitch said, hey, so 1s never second guess themselves. And I was like, okay, then I'm not a 1 because I do it all the time.
Yeah.
And, so that was just eye-opening, and it was really good to figure out what it was. Yeah.
So one thing I do think it's important, that part of your story is Mitch saying, I don't think you're this, I think you're a 6. You don't say that to the average person. That's because you were in a specific leadership group around the Enneagram, right? A part of that process was helping define the type.
Generally, I would recommend not doing what I did. But it
You're
is,
looking over at Tonya. Like,
yeah, no, say that. But it is one of those things that, I've had a few of these conversations with individuals, because I'm like, man, my heart is I want to help you, and I want you to find this path. And I think part of it is because I've studied it and seen it so much, I have begun to like, okay. And I don't say, hey, you're not this, it is a, hey, have you ever thought about, or some of your, the way you're presenting yourself looks like this. And so here's what I would like you to do. I want you to go read as much as you can about this particular number and then sit in it for a week. And this is what I'd recommend to anybody who's like wrestling between their numbers is read as much as you can about that one of the numbers and then sit in it for a week and say, does this, try it on like a jacket. Does this actually fit me? And then read as much as you can about the other number, try that on. And does that fit me better? And then having an Enneagram expert actually sit down and ask you some other follow-up questions to navigate that.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's more of my approach. I didn't just go up to Tonya and be like, hey, Tonya, you are not a 1. But there are a couple of things that I'm like, I'm seeing some things that I'm like, I'm questioning, would a 1 actually do that thing?
I'm actually very grateful, honestly. Like, it was it's weird because it's like, some people who are against Enneagram, but like, which
anti-Enneagram?
Yes. Like there are some
picket
people.
signs?
Yeah.
That happens.
I feel bad because I'm like, it's actually really freeing to know because there's so much I have gained from it and like learned. And then I've actually grown a ton in the last year and just of like who I am. So I am very grateful. Yes, he was very kind about it. And he actually had me read something out loud which I think was more traumatizing than realizing I had a number because I had to read something out loud. But, just he had me read this, and I appreciated it very much. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So one thing we did last episode, and I really liked how it went, is Mitch, in a minute, I would love for you to talk about the Enneagram 6 as a whole, kind of that broad strokes. But I would love to hear from you guys first. What is it like being a 6? And you can answer that a number of different ways, but we'll go back to you, Kelly. So, I mean, in general, if you're describing it to someone who's not a 6, what is it like being a 6?
So for me personally, it's just kind of a constant stream of thought. It's a little intense sometimes, to be honest, but super freeing knowing that I am a 6. And I think for me, in my story, some of it, when I didn't understand that I was a 6, actually looked like mental illness for me. So just constantly going through and having crazy anxiety about things and not understanding why. And because when you're a 6, you don't not think about something at all times. Like I'll ask Aaron, my husband, like, how can you just like sit there and be calm and quiet and not do anything? And he'll be like, well, I'm not thinking about anything right now. And I can honestly say, I don't think I've ever had that moment in my life where I just wasn't thinking about something.
So it's freeing for you because it was able to put into words that this is more of your personality as opposed to a mental illness. Yeah,
because I really thought it was an anxiety-driven mental illness. And really it was just, no, I'm not processing my thoughts well. Gotcha. I'm unhealthy in these moments and I'm not processing appropriately. Or I'm not doing things that help me to not stress or help my body or help my mind. So yeah.
Okay. You bring up something that I want to ask Mitch about. So in the Enneagram, there are triads, right? And the 6 is in the head triad, right?
Yep.
The thinking triad.
Yep.
I think when I first heard that, I was like, oh yeah, it makes sense because I'm constantly thinking. But I've heard it described as you're not really thinking well. You're having a lot of thoughts.
Yep. It's it's really that over thinking. And then it becomes out of the head triad, 6s are actually the most reactionary and emotional because of this overthinking that is constantly happening and having to adjust and react on the fly. And what if this happens and this happens and this happens? And I wanted to ask too with that, you're like, there's just this constant stream of thought. Do you feel like what are those thoughts that are going through? Is it what ifs? Is it questions? Is it just commentary on? Is it like, what is that constant stream of thought?
All.
Yeah. Okay.
So, I mean, it can range from just like questioning something, to like fully like planning out a scenario that is real or not real. So like a complete process of going through something. Like when I do a program for kids here at church, I will spend an insane amount of time processing through every single scenario that could possibly happen, which is ridiculous. And none of those things ever happen, but it's a constant. Like, okay, so yes, it's a what if. What if this happens? Okay, here's the steps I'm going to take if that happens.
You know what that makes me think of? In another episode, we mentioned it. Well, I think I said it. It reminds me of, remember those Choose Your Own Adventure books?
Oh, yeah.
I hated them.
Makes sense.
And it was because it's like, do you want to go through the door or do you want to blah, blah, blah? And you go to that page and you're like, you died. And it was like, I had no opportunity to analyze my 18 options. Yeah. It was just like, you're dead.
It's funny.
Or, you know what I mean? It drove me crazy.
I had R.L. Stein, one of those. So I just read through the whole thing. I didn't ever go through the steps because I had to know what was gonna happen.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
That's a way far memory right there.
I've heard it explained, and I'd be curious since I'm sitting here with 3 6s. For the Enneagram 1s, it's usually, they talk about it as like this inner critic or inner coach. It's just this one person that's kind of, coaching you along. Where I've heard for Enneagram 6s, it's more of like an inner committee. Okay. It's like the entirety of the UN is all sitting around and they're all constantly saying things at you. Yeah. And you're like, well, which one of those things do I do? What if this happens? What if this? Well, it could be good if we did this, or what if we planned out that? Oh, did you think about how much money that's going to cost? Oh, did you think about how much time that's going to take? Oh, did you think about if this kid gets hurt? Oh, did you think about, and it's just this constant, and it's all of these things that are just constantly almost like a bombarding your mind, more of a committee though than an individual.
For sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And I think for me, I'll speak for myself, like sometimes it weighs heavily on the negative, where I'll have a few thoughts of, this is where we could go in a positive direction. But most of the time it's a negative perception of, these are the negative things that could happen, and how am I going to prevent the negative things from happening? And it's also how do I prevent the negative things from happening so that everyone else is okay around me? Not me. How is everybody else going to feel?
You're not naturally thinking, here's a situation. I immediately think of 15 ways this could go awesome.
Yeah.
Right? You're not thinking.
Never.
No. Yeah, I don't think so.
And to your point, Mitch, you give me a situation and then I feel like I could argue it from every angle. At the same time, so it's like, if I was just following that stream of thought, I would constantly be like stepping on what I'm saying. Like, well, actually there's, as I'm saying that, I also understand that there's this side. And, in other numbers, we talked about black and white and gray. And I feel like everything's gray. So,
but I think that's a particular subtype. Okay. Whereas I would say, I would love, you say gray. What is the world more black and white or more gray for you? Like, I need to do things, I don't really see things in all these different.
Sometimes it's more black and white, which is sometimes what made me think that I was a 1, because there's the right and wrong. Sometimes it's, if I don't do this, then it's this, nothing's going to go well. So I don't know.
So maybe even different styles of committee though, because what you're saying is like, hey, they're giving me all these different angles to look at this, whereas Kelly, maybe for you, it's like, there's like, hey, but did you think about this step and then this step and then this step, and we got to do it in this
there's
order.
Like a research piece to that for me, which is a part of my subtype. That I always lean to. So I won't have an answer. Whatever's going on in my head, I won't feel like I have any solid solution. So then I go into research overdrive and I just start trying to figure everything out, and figuring out every possible solution. And sometimes that's where it gets great for me, because every solution looks great.
Right.
So.
Right. Tonya, what about you? The black and white or gray?
I'd have to say it's probably more black and white. Like, there's a right, wrong, but I can also get in that gray. And I mean, having my husband who's a 9, he can see all sides. That comes at me sometimes too. And then I'm like, I can see that. Or sometimes like someone will say something, that sounds good too. So it just I think it depends on the situation for me.
Yeah. Okay, let's take a step back. I'd love to hear from you as far as like learning that you're a type 6 or associating yourself with that. What has it been like? How would you describe it to someone else?
It's funny. The first word I always think of is exhaustion. Like, I feel like it's exhausting sometimes to be me. And learning more about myself and doing some of the coaching I've done, like, I realized no, there's a lot of really great things about 6s. But I feel like, really realizing like I'm very prepared. Like Kelly was talking about, like, I think of all these different solutions to everything that is possibly not going to happen, but I'm ready if they aren't, if it happens. I love that we're like loyal, and I mean, I can be your biggest cheerleader, honestly. Like, I like, having the friends and just being their friends and being there for them. And, there's a lot of really great qualities for 6s that I try to focus more on and not the negative stuff, because that can be very daunting, because I do struggle with anxiety and I do struggle with like the overthinking that I do, because I overthink everything. And so that can be a bit much at times.
I can relate to it can be tiring. And so for me, often, I'm going to Kenya in 2 days. When I hear about the trip, hey, do you want to go to Kenya? Yes, let's do it. And then, it's far away on the calendar. And then the closer I get, the more it's like, oh, wait, what about this? What about this? What about this? And you start making plans or collecting, all the what if scenarios, things to address all those what if scenarios. And I don't know if you guys can relate to this. I have to push through that, all the inside internal stop signs saying, what are you doing? You should not be doing this. You're not prepared. You're not ready. And that's with every big thing. It's like you have to push through that. And that's where it feels exhausting. On the other side, you're like, why was I so worried? Things worked out.
Oh, yeah.
But then the next thing gets on your calendar, the next challenge you have, and it all starts over again.
Oh, yeah. I understand that 100%. That's like my life.
Yep.
Like being nervous about doing the podcast. And it's like, once I'm done, I'm going to be like, it wasn't even that big.
This
wasn't scary, And so it's exhausting.
Oh, yeah.
I remember one time Mitch said to me, he said 6s are like the bravest number, or I don't know. He
Most
said
courageous.
Courageous. I was like, it was something
Smartest,
like that.
strongest. Which
Yes.
one was it? Most attractive?
I think it was the strongest.
Strongest, yeah. We're the strongest type.
And I think that like hit me in a way of like, we wake up every day like pushing through a lot of stuff that might seem scary or something we're like afraid to do or think we're not going to do it well enough or,
Yep.
So
Yeah, for sure.
that's always stuck with me.
Yep. It makes me think of like that horror movie of, like the dark doorway and the hero needs to go through it. And I think this for the 6, we are in that constant state of this is a terrifying scenario, but I'm going to go in anyway.
Yep.
Mitch, how would you, in a nutshell, the overview, how would you describe 6s? And I would love to get your any reaction.
Yeah. So typically 6s are labeled as like that loyal skeptic, very loyal, but also very skeptical of the world. And that's like and of people and asking questions and stuff. The motivation really is to be safe and to feel secure in their relationships or in whatever they're doing, and then and supported by the people that are closest to them. They focus on what can go wrong, and that's where that pessimism you were talking about is like more of the worst case scenario things. There's all these worst case scenarios and the what ifs. I like to talk about it this way with the what ifs. It's like with Enneagram 6s, like, oh, what if this happens? Man, what if this happens? But get to the Enneagram 7s, which we're going to do next. Their what ifs are like, well, what if we did that? And what if we did? It's the same what if question, but it's focused very differently. And so the what ifs and the worst case scenarios focus on constantly being on the lookout for potential threats that are out there, and how do I mitigate those things, paying attention to the hidden intentions and dynamics in relationships, and then questioning who can be trusted, being very skeptical, and maybe even at some points like putting other people to the test to see, will they be loyal back? Will they protect me back? Will they help keep me safe and secure, or this authority or this structure help me be secure? The worldview that, showing up to the world is that they see the world as a threatening and unsafe place, which drives them to test and question things and people so that they can feel safer. They want to make sure that again, it's that safety and security is paramount to the Enneagram 6.
Do you guys, would you say you've done work in the Enneagram, so you probably know some of these words, but when you think about worry or fear, would you use those words to describe your life, or is it different?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fear?
Oh, definitely fear. But it's like you said, it's pushing through the fear. I think that's, as I learn more about the Enneagram, I learned to push through. And great things happen when you push through.
Yeah.
Like amazing things happen. That's how I ended up at Rocky, because I came from a place of comfort and I pushed through fear and I came here. So yeah, definitely fear.
Would you say the same thing, Tonya? Because I've met some 6s where it's like, I wouldn't say worry. They wouldn't use those words.
I mean, of course I have worry and fear, but I don't feel like it takes over. Like, I feel like I can be anxious. I think anxiousness and fear, I don't know. I feel like it's a little bit different. Like, I might be anxious about something, but I may not be like always scared. And I always like push through, or I'm like, I don't know. And I don't know if it's learning more about some of the subtypes, like on like the 1-to-1 or, stuff like that, where I'm like, I can sometimes like feel like I get that 1-to-1 person or whatever. But I don't feel like I fear a lot, but I don't know, maybe I do. And I just don't realize, like, I wouldn't use that word maybe, but I do feel like I just can be prepared for worst case scenarios, but I'm not always scared.
Like, no matter how much you prepare, you don't feel prepared.
Sometimes, yeah, I don't know. I don't know how to really, I don't know if I would say that
is it more like an anxious feeling than fear?
Anxious, I would probably say more over fear, because I feel like those are a little bit different. So. Yeah.
When you, feel free to interrupt, Mitch. Sure. Do you notice like a physiological thing that always happens when you are experiencing those moments? You nodded your head.
For sure. Yeah, I do.
How would you describe it?
Like the anxiousness feeling, like my heart will like race, like I get it in my like gut, like my stomach. And, even though like we are the head triad, I feel like, I use my gut a lot as well. And so, Mitch explained that to me one time, and I forget what he said on why we do that or why we might go into that gut part. But anyway, like, I do feel like, I get that racing heart and maybe sweat a little. I don't know.
Yeah. The reason I ask is I notice it in my gut. Like I will get a physical, like my stomach will hurt.
Yeah.
Whenever, and sometimes it's not major things. No. Sometimes it's like something at work. I don't know. There's people tension or something like that. And it's like my stomach just starts to, or you get a text and someone's like, hey, can we talk?
Oh, it's the worst.
And then they don't answer you back.
And you're like, why?
Those could the physiological thing. I don't know if you're remembering what Tonya is referring to, because I was confused about that too. I was like, I would have thought, the gut triad would have, it would manifest.
It's funny because I feel it in my chest. I feel it more in my heart. Like, okay. And it's very much, for me, anxiety is much more in my heart. And, but it's based around some of the same things. It's like it's, for the 9, it is this emotion in this relationship could be broken and could not be peaceful anymore. And so it's like, oh, how do I need to go fix that so I don't feel this tension in my heart anymore. Whereas for the 6, it's this overthinking about everything that's happening. And how do I fix it and get it so it lines out and goes away. And so I can't remember.
It's okay.
The exact thing,
I don't remember exactly what he was saying. He was we were just talking about that, because it's like, even though we're like the head triad, I feel like I go a lot with what my gut.
Well,
and maybe that's not the.
Yeah, but I mean, so maybe
that's part of your growth, the growth path.
But even the Enneagram, like 6s, 9s, and 3s, they're kind of in the center of each of those triads of the head, heart, and gut, and they're actually conflicted. They want to do both things, but they don't want to do the thing that they have a hard time doing the thing that they're actually of the triad they're in. So 6 is the thinking. The thinking is quote unquote, it's not broken, but it's in conflict because there's all this emotion and there's all this, wanting to just act out. And so they repress, the thinking gets repressed a little bit, even though it's overactive, and you go into these other modes. Whereas for the 9, even though I'm in the gut triad and I should act, I'm like, well, I feel and I think about it and I don't act on it.
Okay.
The 3, even though they're in the heart triad, they put away their feelings, but they go towards action and thinking about it. And so it's 6, 9, and 3 are actually in that center, and that it's conflicted in that. Is that?
That's exactly what it was.
Okay.
Yep, that's what it was.
So can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
So for a 6, do you see most 6s like confrontational? Because I know that I will do anything in my power to not be confrontational.
It's not confrontational, but it's sometimes they'll overact, like, oh, I need to resolve this. So I'm gonna text you. I'm gonna call you. I'm gonna come knock on your door. I'm gonna make sure that we take care of this thing right now. Because I can't stop thinking about it until I take care of it. So it's this acting, but it's not logical anymore. And it becomes more reactionary and emotional and action oriented versus logically thinking about it. Whereas an Enneagram 5, they're in the thinking triad, but they just think about it. And they may never act on any of it, but they'll think about it.
Oh, interesting.
And so anyway, that's the 6, 9, and 3 have that confliction going on.
Gotcha.
So let's do this. I would love for you to start going through the subtypes.
Yeah.
And whichever one you want to start with, we'll kind of pause after that and then get your reaction to that subtype.
Yeah. So, like we've been doing, I'm going to go over, just do a quick high level overview of all 3. So we have the self-preservation, the social, and the one-to-one. And each of the Enneagram 6 subtypes, they're trying to create security through a different means, trying to find that safety, trying to find that security, but they go about it a little bit differently. So for the self-preservation, they really go at it by creating strong alliances. So they're trying to be warm and friendly and funny so that they can really connect with other people, because they're like, as long as I have a couple of really strong people in my life, then we can go through life together, and that's what makes me feel safe. Whereas the social, they're trying to create security through adhering to authority. Whatever the authority structure is, or an individual or an organization, they're like, whatever the rules are, we should all follow those rules, because that's the right thing to do, and that's how I fit into this structure, and that's how I feel safe, and I can belong with these people as long as I adhere to these rules. Then you have the one-to-one, and this is the counter type, and we've talked about counter types in the past, but this is the one that's Enneagram 6 that doesn't necessarily look like a 6 and is very often mistyped, actually as an 8. But this is the counter type, and they seek security through confronting danger. They see the danger, they see the fear, and they're like, that fear is not going to get the best of me. And they deny their fear. They sometimes don't even recognize that they are afraid of anything, and they run headlong into whatever situation it is by confronting that fear to make themselves feel safe and secure, because I destroyed that danger first. So it's three very different paths of trying to get that security. So we'll jump into the self-preservation.
Okay.
And 3 things you need to know. This isn't everything you need to know about the self-preservation, but here are 3 things. The first one is they have this sense of uncertainty. They can be apprehensive or hesitant and unsure of themselves, and may find it difficult to be certain about anything. And this can make them struggle with never feeling ready or able. They may they may ask a lot of questions but not answer any of them. They're fine asking them, but don't feel like they need to answer any of them. They have a difficult time making decisions and see the world as gray rather than black and white. Nick, you were mentioning that a little bit.
Sounds right.
The second thing you need to know is that they create alliances, and because they perceive the world as a dangerous place, they try to create strong and supportive alliances and relationships, and they accumulate relationships to actually reduce their anxiety and insulate themselves from any uncertainty or self-doubt. And they feel like I have not only an inner committee, but now I have this outer committee of people I can go to and make sure, like, hey, but what do you think about this? Oh, what do you think about this? To make them feel more certain of the decisions that they're making. They form close connections with others by being warm and sincere and dependable and trustworthy. And they really want the same from other people. They want that same warmth, that same sincerity, that same trustworthiness from others. And then the last thing you need to know about self-preservation is that they really do seek protection. They tend to associate love with protection. And so they seek others who are protective and strong. They want to be with people who are trustworthy and can keep them safe. They want protection from like unpleasantness. So they do their best not to disappoint others because they fear anger and losing that protection. They really don't want to make anybody else mad because they really want that alliance to remain strong. And so that can sometimes lead to people pleasing, to make sure I have this alliance to make me feel safe.
How does that register with you guys?
It's funny because there's things in that I'm like, oh, I do that too. It's funny because you can kind of go through the subtypes and I think you pick things and like, oh, I do that. But I don't, for me, I don't know if I resonate with the whole. I think there are some things I'm like, oh, I don't think I do that.
Yeah.
What was one of the things that you were like, oh, I resonate with that?
Sometimes seeking people around me to kind of, be on my team. Like, hey, especially the warmth, like especially with our families, like I'm always trying to push warmth with people and, make sure that everyone around is feeling good. But I want that back. Like, I need that back. And if I don't get that back, everything is wrong. The whole world is crumbling. But so, yeah, I think I really resonate with having that, cohesive team around you.
What about you, Tonya?
I mean, a lot of it, yes, not all of it. The people pleasing part, I feel like is something I've had to work through. I want people to like me, and I want so I feel like I do the people pleasing thing a bunch, but yeah.
I relate to everything that you said in that list. Yeah. And we've done some work on this. But so many things click when reading that subtype. I say so many things, everything you said. It's funny when you said something about love equals protection.
Yeah.
And, I don't think we always use those words, right? But I remember in middle school's the worst.
Ugh, the worst.
Right? It's the worst. It's very, very difficult. Think about what you've already said about Enneagram 6 and put that onto a middle schooler. It's like, that's awful. I remember in middle school, I was like the smallest kid, one of the smallest kids, and my best friend was the tallest, strongest kid. And he was a little bit of a loner, but I just zeroed on, and he literally protected me on at recess and stuff like that. It's funny, that's just a picture of what that can literally look like. And I think we bring that figuratively into the rest of our lives, and maybe we still see that, sixes still see that in their current relationships right now. But when you were describing that I hadn't thought of this kid in years and years and years. I'm like, oh yeah, I remember him now. Yeah,
it's so. My oldest daughter, she's 15 years old, and she leads with an Enneagram as an Enneagram 6 and resonates with that. And we've talked obviously. We've talked about different subtypes and stuff as well, and this is self-pres is the one she resonates with the most. But it's interesting. Her people at school, at high school, that she resonates with the most are her teachers. And she tries, and I think she goes to her teachers and is even at lunch and at off blocks and stuff. She's like, can I just come sit in your room with you? And I think it's because she feels this sense of safety and security with those people, and those are the people who can actually protect her. So it's just interesting to think about.
I definitely think that too. I mean, if you see my husband, Aaron, so he's a big, tough guy. And this is actually changing my entire view of what subtype I am right now.
Really?
Because of the situation. Aaron's a big, strong guy. He knows how to do a lot of things, fix a lot of things. I definitely 100% find most of my security in him, actually to the point where we've had conversations of, hey, I need to go and spend some time with God, because I think I'm putting my trust in you instead of putting my trust in God.
Wow.
Because he's a rock, he's solid, and I know he's safe and he's going to keep me safe. But that's kind of crazy. Yeah, I think you just messed up my subtype view.
But it we can talk about stacking and stuff. We talk about some stacking stuff with the subtypes, and there's probably one that you primarily lead with, and then one that you swing to help you through situations, and then one that you probably don't resonate with at all. And so as we go through, I'd be interested if that still rings true for you. But it's interesting, going back to my daughter, the character she resonates with the most out of any show is the strong, usually like Enneagram 8, like I'm going to run through a brick wall, anything. She's like, that's even if they're kind of, you're like, why would you like this person? This person is, but she's like, no, and I think for her that she's like, that's the person that would literally do anything for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. But what you're kind of saying about your husband, Aaron.
Yeah, for sure.
Can we talk about the anger piece also? Because I don't know if you guys can relate. I find we were actually talking about this yesterday in like outside, that anger does feel unsafe to the point to where I have found myself, something happens and maybe someone has legitimately wronged me, or I have a reason to be irritated. I have a reason to be angry. And then I react with anger. Once I cool down, I want to go apologize. I want to take like the blame. I'll take the blame for things that I'm actually not responsible for, because that anger and how I left it with that person feels unsafe. I've got to go make up for it. And then I don't like it about myself. It's like, I want to be able to stand and go, no, you're in the wrong.
Yeah.
And that's okay. And I can be angry, and that's okay. And I find myself, you walk through certain situations and you find yourself going, I need to grow in that, because that is not the way I want, my life moving forward to be. I want to have that confidence. And you're mentioning, your daughter and, that stereotypical Enneagram 8. I think we were talking about this yesterday too. It's like, there's times when I admire that, like, I'm right, and I don't need to apologize for being right.
And just leave it and walk away.
Leave it. Yeah.
And then not think about it again.
Never think about it
It's
again.
like a mic drop.
Seriously.
I'm like, oh man,
what's that like?
So I admire that. But when I see an Enneagram 8 unhealthy, it's like the thing that drives me the most crazy. Some people that are just stepping on other people, because then I'm like, how in the world can you be that way? Yeah. How can you think that way?
Why don't you think about your actions?
Exactly. So it's like I'm both drawn to that strength, but also can be completely turned off by it when it's like, man, look at the wake behind you. And like, I'm going to do everything I can to where there's 0 people in my wake. 0. And that's just impossible. Yeah. Anyway, so that's a lot of time on self-pres, because it's what I identify with, and we're talking about myself. All right.
Okay. So are we ready then to move on?
We're ready. We're ready.
So this is the social 6, and a couple things you need to know about them is, number one, they rely on authority. And this is where the difference between thinking about it like an alliance with an individual or individuals, but reliance on an authority figure or an authority structure. So they have a difficult time trusting themselves and trusting other people. So they really try to refer to what they view in their mind as a very objective authority in their life, to help them make decisions, whether it's a person or principles or system of thought. But this can also lead to trusting in the wrong authority, because they've attached themselves to like, oh, this entity, authority or structure helps me make decisions, whether for good or for bad, and aligning themselves and being loyal to that. They also like very much fear disapproval of authorities and believe that the way to be safe is to do the right thing as determined by the authority. If the authority said this is the way I should do it, then this is what I want to do, because I want to remain a part of the group. So they really rely on the authority. Then another thing that's very characteristic of a social 6 is there lots of precision. They are intolerant of ambiguity and fear uncertainty. And so they really see the world more as black and white. We were talking about that earlier. See the world way more as black and white than as gray. And this is the Enneagram type that can really be mistyped as a 1.
What?
Boom,
Sorry,
boom,
we'll come back. We'll come back.
And they can be this precision that they have of wanting not only themselves to follow the rules, but wanting other people to follow the rules. They can become a little bit legalistic, and which can lead them to be controlling or impatient or judgmental or self-critical of not only others, but them really critical of themselves when they don't measure up. They demand a lot of themselves and insist on everything being done according to the codes and the viewpoints of the authority. And then the last thing to know is that they really value structure. They're highly intellectual, but they tend to think in a very structured way. They think in terms of diagrams and flow charts. They make thoughtful projections, which tend toward pessimism. They are like, oh, this could happen, and how do we get around that? How do we do? But they're very methodical and structured in how they attack those different things. And then they tend to be not very spontaneous, because if I live outside of this structured way of life, then I might be bad. I might not be doing what the authority wants me to do. So they would rather live a more scripted life, because they want to be very responsible, and they find it challenging to act because they don't want to make the wrong decision. I mean, that's really what they're trying to avoid, is making that wrong decision.
Survey says?
Yeah.
Ding, ding, ding.
Really?
The Aaron thing is a one-off. That's it.
That's good to recognize, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think there's so much in that. You can probably say that too, that you're like, that's absolutely it. Especially when it comes to like the authority figure. I go back to thinking about when I first came here, we were redoing the kids area, and I was just walking in brand new. And I remember people coming up and asking me questions like, hey, what do you want to do over here? What do you want to do in this classroom? What do you want to do on this wall? And I would have moments where I would stop and be like, I can't answer you. I got to go talk to Amanda. I have to wait to see how Amanda feels about any of these thoughts before I make a decision on that. And so like deferring to that judgment was always super, super huge. And you said something, the last thing that you said was
not being as spontaneous.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It has to be like planned, and I have to know.
You want to look, you really see the world more in flow charts, diagrams.
Oh yeah.
Bullet point to bullet point to bullet point. I mean, it's more linear.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure.
I can understand why this subtype would be confused for 1. And some of the stereotypes surrounding a 1, it's like, yeah, I mean, you said precision, black and white, want others to follow the rules. I mean, some of these things, it's like, that makes a lot of sense.
And I can't make a wrong decision, or like that's life altering.
The end of the world.
Yeah. Like if I've made a bad choice and other people know I've made a bad choice, forget it. I need to leave now.
So the difference is you being right, or you getting it right. It's based in this sense of security, because people would, if I'm wrong, people will be upset.
Yeah.
Then I will feel less secure.
Yep.
And I feel like I'm in danger.
Don't want to look stupid.
Oh,
Don't
yeah.
want to make that
Yeah.
where it's like you're looked down upon or whatever. Like you're
Worst
just like,
thing in the world is for me to look like an idiot.
oh gosh,
Which is
yes.
ridiculous. But and I know it's ridiculous. And I hate it. Oh, I hate it so much, because we're wrong all the time. That's how we learn. But it eats me alive.
I want to crawl under a rock if I look stupid.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, it's the worst.
Oh, it's terrible. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, for an Enneagram 1, it's like, no, I obviously just want to do the right decision. So why would I make a bad decision? I'm making the right decision. And because they have this one inner critic or coach, coaching them and pointing out, hey, this is wrong, go fix that. And it's like, oh, okay, that's what I do. I do the right thing.
Yeah.
Whereas it's much more, there's much more, it's almost turmoil of struggle of, am I making the right decision?
Oh, yeah.
And mulling it over.
Yep.
Than it is. Whereas for an Enneagram 1, it's like, no, I just go make the decision because that's the right thing to do.
Right. I wonder if how we determine was I right or wrong is more indicated by like, did it work for the crowd?
Oh, yeah.
Right. So maybe an Enneagram 1 would say, I don't care what the crowd thinks. That was the right thing to do.
It's the right call to make. Yeah. So I made it.
And a 6 might say, I don't want to be wrong, but that is determined by if everyone agreed if it was right or wrong.
Yep.
Yeah.
I have a story about this that kind of backs it up. So when COVID happened, I was in leadership at a different church. And, we all had to make crazy decisions at that time. Like, or how are we getting together? What are we doing to get together? What are we doing with kids? And I remember just being like paralyzed with fear in those moments, but no one could know. Like, I didn't let anyone know that I was fearful of what was happening, but I knew I had to make like 10 decisions right now, immediately. And there was 100% going to be someone who was upset with me, and I knew it. And it was the most awful time. I remember not eating, not being able to like function normally, but when I would go and do a Zoom meeting, because that's what we did, I would just show this face of I'm fine. Like, oh, I've made all these decisions. I'm great. And I was dying inside, like literally dying.
That's one thing about Kelly. And I feel like I can be that way sometimes too. Like, I let people that are close to me know maybe how I'm feeling more, but don't show the fear. You would have no idea half the time of what is actually stirring inside. And I feel like that, I can do that too. Sometimes I'm more vocal with it, but Kelly for sure is one that she won't let you know.
Bury it deep down.
Yeah. She's always been like that.
Because
So
it might upset someone if they know that I'm upset. So I can't.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
So I would love to hear about the one-to-one.
Yeah.
Now, maybe this is one that if I said I was self-pres and you guys are saying social first, maybe it might not sound super familiar. However, as I understand it, when it comes to stacking of those subtypes, and even I've heard the term integration, we should be able to get better at accessing this subtype. Is that right?
Yeah. And if you really think about it, the one-to-one, which we're going to get into, is like they're hey, I see this fear thing and I'm going to shut this fear down and I'm running at this thing.
Yeah.
I don't even care about this thing. They want to prove that this fear has no control over me. And so they run at it. And so, again, it's another way of looking at the security and all that. So, all right, let's jump in.
Yeah, let's jump in.
So they really are trying to find that security through the confronting danger. And a couple of things you need to know is that they have a lot of strength. They tend to deny their feelings of fear and have a passion for searching for and securing a position of strength. And the strength is often used for intimidation, actually, because they believe that if they appear strong, they appear to have a lot of strength, they won't be attacked, because they believe the best defense is a good offense. How do I make sure that nobody can come after me? And if I just appear strong, nobody can get to me. And so they really want to make their enemies afraid of them. What they perceive, these outside threats, that nobody's going to come at them. Second thing you need to know is that they confront danger. They hold the belief that the world is a dangerous place. But instead of feeling fearful, they have an inner belief that when you are afraid, they charge headlong into it. And they typically feel much safer when directly confronting dangers. And so they risk confronting risks, confronting threats. This strength and determination to tackle things head on lead to challenging behaviors around them, and they may be labeled as rebellious or fearful or a bit of a daredevil or confrontational in whatever they're doing. And then the last thing you need to know is that they're very assertive or aggressive in how they approach life. They tend to acknowledge they tend not to acknowledge their aggressive side, or may not be aware of it, or at least not aware of the intensity of which they're approaching other people. And this propels them forward to get things done. They may seem certain in their assertiveness, but they still can hold doubts in their mind, which can lead to doubting what to do or getting caught up between choices. But in the end of the day, they want to act first, and really appear to be very strong, assertive, aggressive in what they're doing. Mm-hmm. they want to say, hey, I can create my own security by being strong.
Yeah. So does that resonate? Does you relate at all?
Not a lot.
Kelly says no.
Some of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was the look on your face.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, a little bit.
A little bit. Yeah.
In what ways?
Yeah. What about?
I mean, I think it depends on like the people I'm around. Maybe that comes out more. I do feel like I can be more aggressive. I feel like I can be a little intense. I feel like I'm a little bit much sometimes. But I don't know if I show that a lot. And maybe I do. Maybe it's that I don't know, like he said. So there's some of that, yes. And I feel like I do try and, you know, what did you say about the fear?
It's confronting danger?
I don't really like go after it, but I will prove it that I can do something. I don't know. Is that something like that? Like I can prove I can do something even if I'm scared. I will show you I can do it. I feel like I can do that. I don't know. What do you say? I think I also read something that they are more competitive. And I can be competitive.
That's where you resonate more.
She's not competitive at all.
And
I'm not.
That's the assertive and aggressiveness too.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I'm going to go after this thing.
Yeah.
So I feel like there's some of that in there as well. I feel like I can see a big chunk in each one. For me, it's hard for me to pick the stacking
That's interesting.
order.
Yeah.
I think social for sure, but I mean, the other two is kind of hard to say.
You know, it's funny when I most relate to the one-to-one, sometimes I feel like I have issues with authority figures. And sometimes it'll be kind of this push and pull. Like I will find a lot of comfort in authority figures that I trust. If I don't trust authority, I'm going to buck against, and I'm going to be a thorn in your side. Not intentionally, but it's just like, this is how I'm going to handle this situation.
And the one-to-ones can very much go buck the system on authority. They're either all in on the authority because they found their person, or they're like, nope, I don't care, and now I will be a thorn in your flesh. Yeah,
I think I also see it come out when there's actually a real physical threat. That's when I feel like especially, and you guys can probably relate to this, if like my family or someone's threatened, that's when it's just like, and maybe that's just a parenting thing.
Yeah.
But what's funny is we're going to go have another story time with Nick right now. I'll keep it short. But I remember as a child, I heard a huge crash in the house, and I was probably, 7 or 8. Huge crash in the middle of the night. I go out of my room. I don't hear anything. It's pitch black, and my parents were on the second story. So I started walking up to their room to I want to figure out what's going on. And I felt on the steps, I was putting two and two together. It's like there's shattered glass all over the stairs. But I just kept walking through the glass upstairs, which is really bizarre. And I woke my parents up. I'm like, hey, one of your lights fell in the stairwell. And my parents were like, we know. What are you doing walking through it barefooted? But I think it was this I'm terrified right now, but I need to go find security. I need to go feel safe. And I don't care if I have to go into the dark. I don't care if I have to walk through this dangerous situation. I'm gonna resolve this. I think one thing I would love to start talking about growth, because we actually this episode's been almost an hour long. Because
it's about you.
It's about me. I'm sorry. But I like to talk about growth because obviously you guys have done a lot of work. Yeah. So what I would love is for you to tell us what has been helpful. You know, obviously dealing with things feel gray and I want them to be black and white. How do you address that? When you feel that sense of fear, when you feel that sense of danger or anxiety, how do you work through that? How do you grow? How do you get better?
I think for me, it's actually has been pushing into the confronting fears, getting to that, one-to-one space almost where I see it in front of me. I feel the, hey, I'm going to Kenya fears, but just forcing myself to get through it. Cause I always find growth on the other end. I always feel better. I'm always able to confront the next situation better if I push through. It took a really long time to figure that out. I also have to find moments of mental clarity. So running for me is the one time that my brain kind of shuts off and I can turn toward my form or how far I'm going or anything else. So I have to find that one thing that'll kind of make my brain shut off for a little while. And those are some of the moments that I talk to God the best, hear from God the best in certain situations, or I feel like I can get to a more clear decision on things whenever I'm in those moments. So I have to find that thing that like shuts me down. And for me, it's physical. But
it helps you turn that committee that's just chattering. It shuts them up for a little while.
Yeah, I'm too tired, so they can't talk.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the thing.
If that was me running, I'd just be like, I hate this. I hate this. I hate this. I hate this. I hate this.
What am I doing?
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, but you're focused then.
Super hyper focused on stopping running.
Why am I doing this?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
What about you, Tonya?
Yeah, I mean, I get a lot of that too. I feel like I've had to, push through and do things that have scared me, or that I thought I just wouldn't do well at, and learn that, or know that like it's a learning process for me. I've also learned, I know we didn't talk about this, but like the projection of feelings and stuff has been a huge eye-opening thing for me. And so I've had to really work through what that looks like, what triggers that, and how to like stop doing that, or learn how to be okay with like certain things. Like if, someone isn't, like if I feel like someone doesn't like me, or if I don't feel like I'm being accepted, just learning to like let that go and move forward. I feel like doing things scared is like a thing for sixes. And I feel like just having to like go through and continue to, realize like I'm not going to die doing this. And I've actually learned a lot pushing through and doing some of those things, and just gaining that confidence that I lack a lot of. And so it's been a huge growth thing for me, because I didn't realize, kind of like how Kelly was saying, realizing like being a six, like I'm like, oh, this is normal. This is who I am. There's nothing wrong with me. Yeah. Yes, there's things to work on. And yes, there's like, they're not all great positive things, but just knowing that, oh, there's nothing wrong with me. This is just who I am. And I need to learn how to either fix some of those negative things, or what my triggers are, so that I don't, I do them less.
So I'm curious, because both you guys are doing hard things because you're working with people, right? So when you're doing these hard things intentionally, is there any portion of you that's reflecting on like, okay, I did survive that. This actually went well. Is there any intentionality there?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
You know that like saying that should be on a shirt, it's, but did you die? I think that's my constant like, hey, okay, but did you die? You did this. Did you die? Are you good? I'm good. Okay. I can do this again.
That's actually one of the growth strategies for us.
Really?
is literally like asking yourself or waking up in the morning, literally writing out everything in your mind that you think could go wrong today. Or about a meeting you have, or a program you're planning, or whatever, and writing everything down that you think could go wrong. And then at the end of the day, looking back and saying, well, what actually happened? And did I die from doing this? And then, but also being able to look and see, did any of these things actually happen?
Yeah.
And you realize like, oh, wow, what am I doing with all of this stuff that just keeps coming? And being able to like, then maybe get to that decision space quicker, because you're like, I could write all this stuff down again, but it didn't really happen last time. And you can begin to trust yourself more, because that's really the Enneagram for an Enneagram 6 is like learning to not just trust out there and the people around me, but your mind is so confusing because there's so much going on to be able to get to that clarity space, and being able to trust yourself, and being able to trust, God's your ultimate authority, and he has your best interest in mind. And he really wants to bring that clarity for you and helping you take those next steps and making those decisions, and to be able to go to him and find that clarity and that peace and that security and that comfort that comes from him to be able to take those next steps. So having little practice like that as well, so helpful.
Yeah.
I think for me, one thing I'd add is we were talking about that feeling in your gut, for me, it's been important to recognize that feeling, because I've heard multiple people say this, that your body will tell you what's going on before a lot of times your thoughts catch up. And it's like, why am I feeling this way? And trying to write it down, or at least name it. What is it? And it's almost like, man, my foot hurts, and just leaving it at that, like my foot just hurts, as opposed to figuring out, oh, I have a little piece of glass in my foot. That's what it is. And all I have to do is remove this piece of glass, and it doesn't hurt anymore. It's almost like if you're just okay with, living for a week of like, my foot's killing me. I have no idea, why. Taking the time to recognize and name the things, because often it's like, oh, if I'm really, really specific in the thing that's bringing me anxiety, it's actually a small thing and it's actually manageable. But when it's 5 things all at once, it feels like it's not manageable. I'm curious from you guys, and then so I have a question for you, and then Mitch, I would love to know kind of the way you've approached a lot of these episodes as far as what do 6s, really need to hear today, if there was one thing you'd leave them with. But first, I'd like to know from you guys, you're both people of faith. The gospel has been helpful to you. And something I've asked every single number so far is, what is it about the gospel that you find the most helpful or the most healing, or the thing that you appreciate about Jesus the most as it relates to being a type 6?
Yeah. Do you want me to go first?
Yeah.
Kind of looked at me, so I was like,
you should go.
I think for me is that, like, knowing that I was created, I was wanted, God wanted me here. I was created for a purpose. And even when I'm scared to do things, like, I know that I'm here and I have gifts. And I feel like just focusing on that I'm so loved, and that that God He wants me to do great things for Him, and just stop doing it so scared. Like, He's going to be there, like, with me and for me, and that I'm wanted, and that I'm His masterpiece. Like, just those things of, like, all those really good things and qualities that, He's given me, was for a purpose and a reason, and I'm here for that. And so just really trying to focus on, what that looks like. So I don't know. That's one of the things that I focus on a lot.
Yeah.
What would you add, Kelly?
I think I always fall back on, the verse in Jeremiah where it says, I know the plans I have for you.
Yeah.
I knew this from the moment you were born. I have this all figured out. You're just need to follow my word and my guidance.
And those plans will not harm you.
They won't harm me ever. Yeah, exactly. And that His intention for me is good. No matter what, it's always good. And situations are hard, but He's standing right next to me. He's right there with me. He's not leaving me or forsaking me. I've got Him. He's got my back. I think that's something that has always helped me through just about anything. He's got me.
Yeah.
Well,
right here.
And I think also too, it's like our worlds are like, it feels crazy and chaotic at times. And honestly, ultimately, like, what it comes to at the end of the day is that relationship with God. Like, what does that look like? That's all, like, yes, we have our families and they're important, but ultimately it's like, how does God see me? And, like, that's all that matters, is that, like, relationship. And I feel like that is what helps me feel at peace, is knowing that, and that, that I can always lean on Him, and that, I have, tattooed on me, like, abide. I'm just constantly always trying to abide in Christ and what that looks like. And so, I feel like being in the Word and just surrounding myself with Him is what helps with that, like, anxiousness and that, like, peace. Like, that feeling at peace is such a good feeling, and I don't always feel that. And so it's just a good reminder to just constantly just, like, being in the Word and really focusing on Him, because He's the one that really matters. And at the end of the day, this is what we need to do. So
I think sometimes too, just being in the Word, just opening it up, at least for me.
For sure.
That's another one thing that just shuts my mind off. It's like that thing where worry can't be there if God's there.
Yeah.
So if I just open up His Word and I just start reading, like, a lot of that gut feeling, that'll fall away.
Is it instant for you?
Yeah.
It's instant for me. It's weird. That's like, I just open up the Bible and start reading, and it's like this instant, it's like melts.
That's really cool.
Away.
It could be Leviticus and it'll still do it for me.
Oh,
like,
no, really?
I don't even, just anything. You just open up God's Word, and there's
You're more
something about
spiritual
it.
than me.
No, Leviticus is not good.
I know, that's what I'm saying. God, we didn't mean that.
Yeah,
Leviticus
it's
is
great.
awesome.
It's rules. It's awesome.
You read Old Testament, It's like in the book of Joshua, God is telling Joshua, it's like, be bold, don't be afraid, be courageous. And then Sean is talking about this Sunday about how we can boldly enter the throne room of God and have all this confidence. But then also, the New Testament is telling us, like, cast all your fears on God. In the Message paraphrase, I think it says, like, pile them onto God. And there's this recognition of it's okay if you have a lot of them, if you have a lot of concerns. You don't have to only give me one or two. I can handle all of them. So I think there's a spiritual component of what you were saying, Mitch, as far as like writing the list of everything that can go wrong. I think there's people in our life, most people, that would overwhelm them if we just spewed every single thing out. But writing them down, I think there's some connection when it comes to Scripture saying, cast every single one of those.
Throw those
fears.
all.
Yes. Give them all to me. And if you have to give them to me again later on the day, that's okay too. You're not going to overwhelm me. We're not going to overwhelm God. I love that. And the fact that he can actually take action based on us coming to him is huge. I find a lot of comfort in that, a lot of help in that.
Sure.
But Mitch, for someone listening today that say, yes, the things that are said, I am a type 6, what would you want to leave with them? What do they need to hear?
I mean, really, you guys just said it in a lot of ways. And I think you guys said it very beautifully too. It really is when you have those feelings of doubt, those feelings of anxiety, it's that knowing that God is with you, that he won't ever leave you. He won't ever forsake you. He won't ever abandon you, that you are safe and secure under his authority. And he loves you and will never push you out or push you away. And that also, I think, sometimes 6s can get caught up in all these rules. God's rules are very simple, very simple. Love God, love others. And I think, we need to stop with like, oh, did I do this right? No, did you love God? And did you love others really well? And make it really simple. And so anyway, that's what I would leave you guys
And
with.
if you mess it up, you ask for forgiveness.
It's okay.
Yeah.
He's there.
Yeah. That's a really good word. Ladies, thanks so much for talking. I realized today it's uncomfortable to talk about. Like, I kind of want to talk about myself because it's interesting, but then it's like, ugh, like you read the self-preserve, like, ugh. I don't like to hear this. So now I kind of feel bad about all the other types we've had on the podcast. I'm like, tell me more about the hard stuff. Yeah,
You're
so thank
vulnerable
you guys.
right now. Keep talking. This is great.
It's like, can I turn this volume down? Yeah. But thank you guys for being willing to share. It's helpful. People need to hear your stories because it can help them see their stories in your stories. So thanks so much.
Yeah, of course.
So next week, we're going to pick up Enneagram 7s. And I'm really excited. We have two 7s that are going to be just fun. It's a fun conversation.
How can it not be?
How can it not be?
Yeah.
We'll try to make it. We'll try to strip that away. Let's get raw. If they're listening right now, we're not going to be that bad. But we're going to pick up Enneagram 7s next week. So thanks so much for watching. If this resonates with you, please share it. More people need to hear about this conversation, and you can help with that. So if you love it, rate it, review it, and share it with the people around you. Thanks for watching.